Welcome everyone to October 25th, 2023 dev meeting for the Flux developers. We have some agenda items. If we have any more agenda items, anyone would like to begin the discussion today? Michael,
I
I see
think
you
Max
first.
put something on for me. Are there any others? I don't have the document up. Are there
I
other
have one thing to
agenda?
discuss, but it's fun and can wait.
Well, my thing's not fun, but yeah, I won't take up that much time anyway. It's just sort of provoking a conversation, really. Okay, so shall I proceed, Kingdom?
Sure. Yep.
Cool. So Max suggested I come here to talk about the proposal for sponsorship. It's slightly broader than just for sponsorship, but the sponsorship is kind of the interesting bit of it, I think. This is PR that I put up in Flux City/community. It's the only PR there at present, so it should be pretty easy to find. It's #321. And I want to talk a little bit about the purpose, what the case is for sponsorship, how it might work, and then what could sort of come next, or what the next steps are. So with respect to that first bit, what is the point of it all? What's the reason for dealing with sponsorship, that kind of thing at all? The idea is that there, and this is to some extent from a Weaveworks point of view, so bear that in mind. There are organizations that want to contribute to Flux to sustain it. But really the only way they can do so at present is either directly by committing people, or in some cases, if they've got, cloud platform kind of resources that Flux might need, they could donate those, but usually by committing people to work on it. And then the other way is indirectly, and the only way they can really do so indirectly is by essentially paying Weaveworks or another company that employs Flux maintainers, and sort of hoping that that money will go towards paying Flux maintainers to keep going with Flux. So the idea with sponsorship is that it gives those organizations and perhaps individuals, but probably organizations, a way to contribute funds, so cash, to the Flux project, to sustaining the Flux project, and have a bit more without necessarily having to buy anything. So they're not sort of doing it indirectly by buying support or something and then hoping that money goes there. They're saying we want this cash to go to the Flux project. But you can't do that at present because someone needs to employ those people. It's not the Linux Foundation that employs the maintainers, so it's got to go to someone who then employs people to work on Flux. So Weaveworks is interested in setting up a sponsorship program so that people can do exactly that. They can contribute by giving Weaveworks cash, which will then be used to pay for employees to work on Flux. There are probably other ways people could set up sponsorship programs. So, and as a CNC, as an independent project, Flux has to allow that. It's not, it wouldn't be fair to kind of give favor or make it exclusive to Weaveworks. So what I've tried to talk about in the PR is in very neutral terms, but to be transparent, Weaveworks wants to be able to do this. So that's kind of what it's about and why I put this proposal in. There's also a bit in there about, which is not to do with sponsorship, it's just about recognizing contributions other than committing people to work on things. In fact, recognizing when people have committed, when organizations have committed to people to work on it as well. For instance, Zenit, Philip has been a maintainer for a while. When Max was at D2IQ, he was given permission to work on Flux for a day a week for a while. So recognizing that would also be a nice gesture. So that's kind of another part of the proposal. It's sort of separate. The main thing I'm talking about now is the sponsorship part. So the shape of what I'm proposing, I've kept it quite minimal because I think I just want to provoke the discussion around it, and then it's really up to the Flux community to say, yes, this is something we want to do. Let's try and make it workable, and that should all be done out in the open. So, I make the minimum proposal, and then all the rest is kind of talked about out in the open. And the shape of it is that I think there are sort of two directions. There's two requirements. One is, what do you get as a sponsor? And the answer is recognition. So you get, your name on the website, essentially. And that's something that Flux would have to be quite careful about, like what is actually in scope for being a sponsor, because someone could just set up a sponsorship program and say, oh yes, pay us money, and Flux Flux maintainers will come to your door with treats. So Flux has to be very, very careful about saying, okay, you cannot promise these things if you're running a sponsorship program like this. You can only promise, we'll put the name on the website, kind of thing. So that's sort of one requirement of it, of what would need to be figured out. The other is, what do you need to do in order to be a sponsorship program of the kind that Weaveworks wants to set up? And what are the sort of processes around getting that accepted by the Flux project? So I've tried to outline those as well. That's quite important because essentially this is a sort of three-party relationship. There's the Flux project, the community, the sponsor themselves, and then whoever's doing the sponsorship program. And there has to be a certain amount of trust and checks and balances between those three parties. So I tried to set out at least a bit of a framework for how to think about that, and what kind of processes might make sense, like reviewing a sponsorship program to make sure that it is still running. So having explained that, what comes next? If I'm not sure what the decision process will be, but essentially to go ahead, this would need to be kind of discussed into and sort of rewritten and edited into an actual governance document. It's not quite about governance, but it sort of belongs in the same part of the repos, or the same sort of bit of documentation as governance. And that will probably involve putting some details into how processes and requirements and stuff that I was just talking about work. And then it's really about putting it into action and seeing what happens. So, another thing that has to happen, but is not part of the Flux project's remit, is for, say, Weaveworks to actually set up one of these sponsorship programs. And these have a bit of a loose relationship, so Weaveworks has to have some kind of thing in place to be able to say to potential sponsors, hey, look, this is all going to work. You will get the recognition that we say you will get. It doesn't need to be absolutely finalized, but in order to sort of get interest, but there needs to be some progress made, or it needs to be, a sort of a likelihood. And also, there's no point in doing all this kind of work on the Flux project side unless this thing could actually work and someone might actually front up with some money. So that's why I say these things sort of have to go together, but there's a loose relationship between them. So making some progress on this will help with Weaveworks with trying to see if there's interest in actually doing it. And otherwise, it's sort of see what happens. One thing that can just can just happen and may even be its own kind of separate proposal is that small bit I was talking about earlier with respect to recognizing things other than just direct contributions. So for instance, there's a few companies, I think Google, for instance, who donate cloud platform credits to their platforms. I think it's probably worth listing them and as contributions and figuring out how that kind of ties in with actual personal contributions and is recognized on the site. It is, in my opinion, a good thing to default to being generous with gratitude. Doesn't really cost anything to thank organizations and people. And that kind of paves the way for saying, oh, and by the way, these people are sponsors and we're grateful for that as well. But it can be done separately. It could be its own thing. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. I invite you to have a look at the proposal, PR, what did I say it was? 321 in the Flux community, and make comments, and we'll try and get some discussion going. There's some already. Yeah, and try and sort of knock it into shape as best we can. If there's outright rejection, cool. That's also a signal. But I think broadly the response has been pretty positive and constructive so far, so that's great. Okay, well done. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Do we want to have a reaction, or would we prefer
Yeah,
for
if you've got any
discussion to
comments
be?
now and there's time,
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you want to ask questions, I can probably answer some. There has been more sort of detailed discussion of this in various places, but in terms of kind of opening discussion, I thought it was better to sort of step back a bit and replay some of that stuff. So some of these things have been talked about with various people, not for the purpose of secrecy, just for the kind of purpose of screening what might be bad ideas about it. So yeah, if you've got questions, I can try and answer them here. Otherwise, we can.
One of the things you mentioned is in terms of what are they buying, I guess, and I think that's probably where the biggest question will be, not only for sponsors, potential sponsors, but also for us.
They're not buying anything, they're donating.
Clear.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any changes to the way we do governance, because the idea is that we are already doing what we should do, but we need money to continue to do what we are doing. So it doesn't buy you any perks as is being done by some other open source project. It doesn't give you priority in terms of issues or other things. It doesn't allow you to further shape the roadmap. All things like this are excluded. It's
Nobody's
mainly
buying
a
a
way.
slice of developer time. That's not what we're proposing at all. Just to be totally clear.
That's right. Or not. So in that particular thing, so well said, Hida, that's absolutely right. It's a very strong theme. And I don't think it would work if the idea was you're kind of buying influence. So that said, on the other hand, you're paying cash into a sponsorship program. So, it is within the gift of, say, Weaveworks to say, okay, well, some of our employees can spend some time with you. So you're not buying influence, but you could buy, conversation, or you could have perks, which are some of our employees will help you out with problems you have, right? So it might be a kind of a mix of, here's some sponsorship, here's a bit of support mixed in with that.
That was really what I was driving at, because those are things that we do today at no cost for the community. And it seems silly to say that we couldn't drive those in a direction based on sponsorship.
Yeah, but I think that's up to the sponsorship program. I don't think that's something the Flux project should commit to, or promise, or say is a benefit. We're not going to guarantee that at all. That's up to the, if you hire a bunch of people and then you kind of sell support and other, blah, blah. What you can't just buy directly is influence. That does not flow along the sort of transactional line, if you like. You do get the social capital of saying like, oh, you know, as sponsors of the project, we, you know, have a commitment to the project, and therefore, you know, you can judge how much weight you put into our opinion. So by that, if you see what I mean, you know, it represents a commitment to the project, so you can use that as sort of social capital if you're discussing it, if you want to, right? And something that was pointed out is that might actually feel like permission for people. Like if your company is a sponsor, then you might actually feel like you have more permission to come along to meetings, speak up where you didn't before. So that may actually be a benefit, that social capital benefit to Flux. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've been explicit about not buying influence in the draft. Perhaps I should have mentioned it when I was talking about it.
Yeah, it's highlighted in the last paragraph. In particular, the Flux project does not grant sponsors any elevated status in decision making and does not guarantee extra attention to, for example, proposed features from sponsors.
Yep, that's still all community driven.
Okay, so if there's any further notes or discussion, I guess we'll have them in the pull request.
Yep, there's also a discussion. Did I make the discussion? Maybe not. I started a discussion as well. So basically in where most of them are, I think they're in Flux CD/Flux2, the discussions there's one about.
Yeah, sadly the references are only one way, so you can't see the
whoops.
discussion
Okay,
that has
I'll
been.
put one in the reverse direction, with the idea being the PR is about the mechanics of the PR, whereas the discussion is sort of the meta conversation about should we do this or not, or it sort of doesn't matter where discussion happened that much and what the exact nature of discussion, both places is fine. It's just more difficult to comment on general things in a PR review, for instance, or PR comments. I'll make the link in the thing back up to the discussion in the PR back to
There, I found the discussion and put it in the notes at least.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we could move on to the next topic, I guess, which is the KubeCon that's coming up in Chicago, a little over a week from now, the second week of November, and we have a Flux booth that will be full-time for the duration of the event, as well as a Flux community meeting on Monday. For those who are showing up early enough to come to the community meeting first thing Monday morning. But the topic here is mainly about the booth demo. I wanted to seek feedback before I do too much programming. We are going to have some kind of sticker making contest, and I've put it up to contest now. It was originally going to be sticker making promotion, but we're not 100% certain that we can actually print stickers at the booth effectively. So we may have to find another way that maybe involves getting people stickers after the fact from the best stickers that people are able to generate. But the program and its workflow are around AI and stable diffusion. So if you can imagine what I'm talking about, we would take a Flux logo, a cuttlefish logo, maybe some other logos, put them into a source image, and then let the stable diffusion do what it will with the best prompts from whoever provides prompts through the website, and we'll also take their contact information if they're willing to provide it. So I could use some help on this, although I think I can get it done myself. I have about 40% of the work done now. I've been able to demonstrate the stable diffusion, actually editing Flux logos and putting them on the beach and on vacation. And it seems like a thing that will actually work once we plug it in. But the models cost a little bit to run. There aren't any that are really totally free. So this sort of enters into the previous discussion a little bit, as we could take it one step further. Besides promotion contests, we could even sell stickers. If we make nice sticker designs and get people to release them to us for promotional purposes, then we could build a Flux sticker store, and people could, who feel awkward about a sponsorship or something where they're not tangibly buying anything, maybe they could buy stickers, and that would put it over the edge for some people. I don't know who, but it's a fun thing we're doing as a promotion and to get people into the booth, and that's really what it's for. So, of course, everything will be open source.
What a great idea. I like it.
It's mostly Tomo's idea, but we've been bouncing it back and forth, and now it's shaping up into a thing that might actually be done in time for KubeCon. So
So is there an ask, as they say? Is it for a bit of help getting it
the
finished?
main ask is this okay? Are there any logos that we'd like to be sure we include? Maybe the Helm logo I haven't thought of already, but that's the next one I would put on the list. We want to keep the workflow relatively simple and Flux focused, so it shouldn't be every CNCF logo. And also, I just wanted to make sure that people are okay with this in general. I know that from a trademark, or not a trademark, yeah, maybe trademark, copyright point of view, Tomo will have to allow us to use her cuttlefish image so that we can do this. The Flux logo is trademark owned by the CNCF, I think. So I'm not sure how much they would have to say about it, but I know like Notre Dame and college campuses are all extremely protective of their logos. You can't print Notre Dame Fighting Irish logo holding anything, or these things are fiercely protected. So I just wanted to raise it in a dev meeting where someone would have the opportunity to say, no, I don't like this, before it's out there at the Flux booth.
I think it'd be fine to use the Flux logo. Other logos, I'm not completely sure, but to give this permission, I don't think anyone would be terribly upset.
We're not planning on allowing people to submit their own logos, but people who really want to add a logo can go to the dev effort and create a pull request. So there is the opportunity to create. We may do some releases while we're at the booth, because this is also going to be tied into our Flux maintainer demo. We'll have a simpler version that uses pod info, so we can fit it into 35 minutes. But since we have the booth for the duration of KubeCon, we may do several releases while we're at the booth for demonstrative purposes. So
during the time that everyone's in talks, get some coding done.
okay. Well, if anyone's interested, come talk to me. That includes people who are watching the video after the fact. So that's the last item we have on the agenda. Is there anything else we want to discuss at the last minute? That sounds like a no. Okay. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.